please can you tell us the story of Harald and the caves? It always inspires me to hear that story. All right, so the story of Harald and the caves. I'll try and give you the brief version. So I'd been at Batar in Myanmar for some years, and I left Batar. Theodore actually asked me to leave and join him in California for one summer, for one wasa. So I went there, and then for some reasons I didn't want to stay there long term. There were some things going on with the politics of that centre. I didn't want to stay there long term. So I was still ordained and I wasn't using money, and I felt disinclined to go immediately back to Myanmar, like I should try to practice in some other contexts. But I didn't have anywhere to go. So I went briefly back to the UK, and I cared for my grandmother when she was dying of bone cancer. It was a really beautiful time to be with her. And then it was winter in England, and I didn't have a place to go. And so I asked my mum if she would put me on a bus down to southern Spain. And my logic at that time was, I used to speak a bit of Spanish, like in the years before I ordained, very basic Spanish. And I thought, down there on the south coast of Spain, it's about as far away as you can get on a bus, and it's warm enough that I can sleep outside even in the winter. And I thought, it's Europe, you know, no, I'm not going to die on the side of the street from starvation. Someone's going to feed me. So that's what I did. I got on a bus down to Almeria, and the first few nights I was just like sleeping on a park bench or whatever, and begging my food in the market. And then little by little I started to look around and get to know the place and walk into the hills, and I found a tree to sleep under, and then eventually a little cave. I was in that little cave for a couple of weeks, and I could see there was a mountain of caves behind me. But the people who were offering me food told me, don't go there, they're bad people. And so I spent 2 weeks in this little cave thinking, uh-oh, there's bad people in the mountain behind me. But I planned to stay for like years or a long time and do my practice. So eventually I thought, well, if they're bad people, I better go and get to know them if they're going to be my neighbours. So I went up there to say hello, in my monastic robes, and I met the gang. At that time Barbara was there, and Thomas and Harald and some others. And I thought, well, yeah, like they're not the most moral bunch of people I've ever met, but they're my kind of people. I think I can get along with these people. They were engaged in various kinds of petty crimes, selling drugs, that kind of thing. Just trying to survive, living in the caves, living a very basic life in the caves. And yeah, I asked if I could stay, and they said, yes, sure, but you have to tidy up your own cave for yourself. So it was just a dusty hole, and they lent me like a broom or something, and I broomed it all out, and I searched the rubbish around town, and I by myself sewed up cushion covers and made soft furniture and made my cave amazing. It was absolutely amazing. When it was done, I lay in my bed in the bedroom of my cave, and I painted it all white with lime, and I lay there thinking, I know that pride and attachment are defilements, but I don't care. My cave is like the best thing ever. I did such a good job. And anyway, we became friends, and I was doing my thing, I was meditating, and they were doing their thing, taking drugs, and every now and again, they were so confused that I did not want to intoxicate myself, and every now and again they'd come to my cave and they'd be like, not just a little bit better, and I'd be like, no, not even a little bit. And then they try and tempt me with something else. I'd be, no, it's not for me. I've got my own kicks in the privacy of my own mind. And anyway, there's a lot I could say about that time. It was a beautiful time. But then one day, two of my friends staying at the caves had a fight with each other, and one of them nearly killed the other one. He literally picked up his body, this man was in his 60s, picked up his body and threw him down the mountain and nearly killed him, and then left, and I didn't see him again, which is sad because I had a friendship with that man. But the man who was hurt, his name was Harald, and it really impacted him because he nearly died. It meant that he couldn't leave his cave. He had broken his foot and broken his ribs, and he was all bashed up. So he didn't have papers, and because he was engaged in various kinds of minor criminal activity, he didn't want to call the police or do anything. So he just stayed in his cave for weeks healing, and it meant that he couldn't take drugs, couldn't sell drugs, couldn't even smoke tobacco, had to stop drinking. And before that, really, he told me he'd taken every single intoxicant that he had ever heard of. And I believe him. And he'd drink that cheap carton wine out of the, like out of the pack for breakfast. He was really on it. He told me that he'd been an alcoholic for the last 40 plus years. And from one day to the next, he went completely sober. And he never drank again. And just because of this mindfulness of death, essentially, like untaught, but mindfulness of death, he just from one day to the next went sober. And he asked me if I would teach him meditation. And it was very cute when he asked me. He was shaking, he was nervous. I think he thought that I would say, no, someone like you can't meditate, or something like that. But I was very happy to teach him, and he was a very enthusiastic student. He got his little notebook out and he would write down all of the notes I told him. Anyway, long story short, over the next about 4 or 5 months, I taught Harald meditation every day, and when he could walk again, he'd come round to my cave and we'd sit and have tea and talk about Dharma. And within those 4 or 5 months, he practiced all 8 jhanas. He practiced a few kasinas. I taught him to discern his past lives. And he said, why did nobody tell me sooner? But he said, if I knew about this happiness sooner, I wouldn't have had to take all those drugs. And then I left the caves. It was very funny when I left the caves, and I'd been there about 15 months. And Harald, he was like an aging hippie, like the classic hippie. And so he would come to my cave every day wearing just tie-dyed Speedos and nothing else. He'd come with like a stick, hobbling around to my cave in like just his tie-dyed Speedos, and we'd sit and drink tea and talk about Dharma. And anyway, before I left the caves, I was still a nun, and we were saying goodbye to each other. He said, you know what, Beth? And I said, what? And he said, I think it's really good we didn't have sex. I was like, oh, do you, Harald? I'm pleased you think so. Anyway, I left the caves, and some months after I left the caves, his lifestyle caught up with him, and he got a serious, aggressive kind of cancer. Ironically, they think the cause of the cancer is like stomach cancer. They think it was from all of the ibuprofen that he was taking, which, yeah. So he went into hospital, and my good friend Pia was with him in hospital. He was telling all of the nurses, please meditate, please meditate. At the time, I was in retreat in Myanmar, deep in the forest of Dawei. And he asked if he could speak with me, and we were miles away from any kind of phone signal. But one of the monastics who was with us in this deep in the forest in the middle of nowhere in Myanmar, he had managed to find the 1 square meter of forest where you could get a little bit of phone signal, like if you stood on a rock. And so when Harald wanted to speak to me, obviously he didn't know this. So they sent like relay messengers to the forest in Myanmar. Somebody called someone in Yangon, called somebody in Dawei, who got a hold of somebody in the village, who like cycled to the monastery, and eventually the message got to me, oh, Harald really wants to speak to you. And we went to this little square meter of place in the forest and got the phone signal. I managed to speak to him. And yeah, it was a beautiful conversation. He said thank you, and I also thanked him because he had a beautiful impact on my life. If it wasn't for Harald, I wouldn't have started teaching. What he really taught me is that I don't have to behave like a Burmese monk in order to teach the Dharma. I can just be me, hanging out in my cave, doing my practice, being sincere, and other people can take benefit. So Harald made me brave enough to teach. So I thanked him. And then he said to me, and I always remembered it, he said, I always knew that I could die, but now I really know. And he's just like, you know, maybe a few hours or a couple of days away from his death, and he's lived his life so hedonistic, as if life goes on forever. He said, now I really know. And he died. And Sile Pia reminded me that I also said to him, I haven't finished with you yet, please come and find me. So maybe he's on his way, I don't know. Maybe not the very first, but one of the very early conversations I had with Harald, we were sat on the hill outside of the caves, and he said to me, I think sometimes when you meet people, you meet them for a reason. And I thought, how many times have you used that line, Harald? But now I think, yeah, we met each other for a reason. It was a real magical time. So that's Harald, and inspiring story, because if Harald can do it, no? Like, everyone can do it. He had urgency and he dedicated himself to the practice, and he was grateful, open-hearted, humble. All of those years of monastic life, we were sort of like in a community of people who were fully behind the project of improving themselves. But in all of my years at Park, I never saw such a massively quick, huge transformation in somebody as I saw in Harald. It was just, yeah, stunning. Anyway, that's the story of Harald. Any questions?